everyone. I'm Zabe Barnes, and in this video we are going to be talking about spiritual high magic. So I have an online mystery school. I've been teaching spiritual high magic for 18 years. Sometimes I call it healing, but really it is a form of magic. My truth is that each of us is a magical being. Each of us has magic inside of us, deep magic inside of us. And it's a matter of learning how to tap into it. And where does this magic come from? It comes from spirit. It comes from source. It comes from God, creator, whatever your word is for that. And often it also comes from past lives, things that we've known in past lives that we are able to tap into this lifetime because we've already embodied it in a past incarnation, if you believe in past lives. It is also possible to learn new forms of magic, which is what I do much of the time in my online mystery school, is I teach people how to learn new types of magic that they haven't done before. The very nature of magic is that there's an aspect to it that is beyond our logical, rational comprehension. That there is a mystery to it, that by nature, it's what we call supernatural. But really, supernatural just means that we don't have a scientific explanation for it yet. And we may someday, and then it won't seem so much like magic. It will just make sense in a way that we can explain and replicate even better than what we do now. So I teach magic from many, many different traditions. I studied for years with a woman who had traveled the world living with indigenous shamans and healers and metaphysicians and witch doctors and Chinese barefoot doctors and all these different types. She was learning the magic of different cultural traditions. And so I've studied with her for years, and every year she teaches me a new form of magic, very specific new form of magic. For me, magic becomes a way of being. It starts out as something that we do, and eventually it is something that we become, that we embody, where the magic flies out of us without us even thinking. That is the goal. But before we get to that point, oftentimes we're going to follow a very specific practice. So we're going to talk about 3 specific types of magic. And the first type is what is called low magic. Now, when I say low, I don't want you to think of it as being less than what we're going to call high magic. So low magic just means that it's a type of magic that involves a lot of physical plane objects. So the low magician is going to spend a lot of time gathering tools. They're going to build a collection of different colored candles, different types of herbs, oils, images, little statues, different symbols. The tools matter. The quality of the tools matter in low magic. And they're going to use a lot of different tools, and they're going to maybe layer them even. Think of like making a lasagna with all the different layers. So they're going to have a crystal, and there's going to be a candle, and there's going to be an herb, and maybe there's an image that you draw, and maybe you do it on a certain night of the year, and there's a certain incantation that you say or an affirmation that you say. So you're layering all these different things. That is low magic. And also there's a power when somebody gives you a magical tool. It has much more power than when you purchase it yourself. If you purchase it yourself, it still has power. But when somebody else gifts it to you, now it has extra magic attached. And so my teacher, she sometimes will ask me to gift her something, and she gives me things all the time as well. And there's extra power when it comes from somebody else. So that's low magic, using lots of different tools. And we can get really attached to our tools. The more we use them, they start to increase in power. Those of you who are sensitive to energy might notice that they start to glow, that light comes off of them the more you use something. So that's why we might have a favorite crystal or a favorite bowl that we put all the ingredients in, because by using it over and over again, it adds to the magic. Just like that seasoned pot that you cook in collects the flavors of all of the previous things that you've cooked in that pot, and it just tastes better for some reason when you cook in that pot. So now I'm going to jump to high magic. High magic is when we don't use tools, or maybe we just have one tool, but usually we don't use any tools at all, and it really is the power of our intention. Beyond the power of thought. So I want to make a distinction, because with high magic, we are not just using our mind. We can get really stuck in doing everything from a very mental place, and the mental is not enough in high magic. There has to be spiritual energy coming through. There has to be feeling attached so that you tap into the emotion of what you're creating. And you have to be really, really connected to the earth for that magic to come all the way through. So that's the physical aspect, that you are fully in your body, connected to the earth, fully present here and now, stretching into the spiritual realms with clear mental focus and a joyful, grateful heart, so that you have physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual energy. But high magic is all energetic. It's pure energy. We're working with, in high magic, we're working with codes of light. And often there are no tools at all, or maybe just one tool, maybe. It's a matter of preference. I don't want you to think that the high magic is better than the low magic, because the tools are really fun to work with. I have a brand of magic that I've developed that works with seashells, and I love to play with the actual physical shells. That's the low magic part of it, when I arrange the shells in a certain way and use them in a certain way. But what happens when I don't have my shells with me? Then I do the seashell high magic, where I don't need the seashell at all, and I just send the energy of the spiral out. And it's not just through my thought. I've embodied the energy. With high magic, you have to have embodied the energy of what you're working with. Now, middle magic is in between those two. So middle magic is going to use some tools plus a lot of intention. So it's not as many tools, maybe just 2 tools in middle magic. Low magic, you're going to have a lot of things. And people who practice low magic are very, very particular about the quality of their tools and about getting the exact right tool. So they don't tend to improvise a lot. They're going to follow, it's like following a recipe to the letter. And a lot of times the low magic has been passed down from teacher to student, teacher to student, teacher to student. And so there's an importance to doing it the way that you were taught, instead of changing things. And that is because there's a power, with all forms of magic, there's a power in repetition. When we repeat something over and over again the same way, it grows in power. It builds energy. The more people who do it the same way, now there's a whole energy, like a bubble of energy on the astral plane for that particular method. So a great example are the Reiki symbols. Those symbols, they have grown in power and grown in power and grown in power. And the more people do the symbol the same way, use it the same way, it creates this huge space on the astral plane. And then you see the different lineages of Reiki where maybe they alter a symbol a little bit. Like one of the symbols, I see many different versions of it. So each group is repeating it the way they do it. And you can experiment with this for yourself. If you're trained in Reiki and you use a certain Reiki symbol try using one of the alternate symbols that was not part of the way you were taught. And just see, does it have as much energy behind it? Because you haven't tapped into that group that is using that repetition. And you can try to tap into it with your mind, but if you haven't been fully attuned to that energy, it's really not going to work so well for you. You're going to do much better with the one that you are part of that group. You have a place on the astral plane with that particular version of the symbol. That's where the juice is going to be. The energetic juice is going to be there. So this brings us to another topic. It's the power of the caught teaching, the energy transmission, the attunement. That is a big part, especially of high magic. With low magic, you can read something out of a book and repeat it again and again, and that's what builds up the power. With high magic, oftentimes, you need to receive an energetic attunement, an activation, an initiation of energy, a transmission. We call it caught teachings in my lineage, the caught teaching that you catch from the aura, from the energy field of the teacher. And it's almost like that specific energy code is copy and pasted into your aura. But it's not something that you can just grab. It has to be formally transmitted to you, formally passed on to you. And now there's a power behind what you're doing. It's no longer just an idea. It now has activated energy behind it. And this is mostly what I do in my work, is that I give the caught teachings. I pass on the initiations and the energy transmissions. And it is a fast track to becoming the magic that you are. Those initiations are the fast track. The slow track is following the steps and repeating them over and over and over. Both ways work. So you can read a book, you can practice the steps, you can repeat the steps, you can do it again and again and again impeccably, and that is a valid way to become magic. Or you can do it the fast track way, where a teacher gives you the transmission, and now you have that energy in your field that you can now grab onto anytime you need it. Both ways work. It's just a matter of preference. So now we've talked about low magic, middle magic, and high magic, and now we're about to have a visitation from a cat who hopefully will not knock the iPad over. Let's now talk about the difference between black magic and white magic, because I see that there's a lot of confusion about these terms. So black magic really is magic that is against something. Doesn't matter what it's against something. So we can be against war, and we're still practicing black magic, even though it seems like it would be a good thing to be against war. The black magic part of it is that we're working against an energy. We're going against a flow. So it's never in our best interest to work against something. That's always going to be black magic. Instead, we want to work for something. We want to use our magic for something. That is white magic. So we can be for peace. And just notice when I say I am for peace, I want you to say that. Say, I am for peace. And notice, what does that energy feel like? To me, it feels like this big opening, like a flowering. I am for peace. Now, say, I am against war. And notice, what does that energy do? I am against war. I am against war. The energy starts to collapse in on itself. It starts to shut down. It's more restrictive. So forget good, bad, right, or wrong. I mean, yes, I want you to have ethics and morals, of course, especially when you're working with magic. And the truth is, the deepest magic is not even going to be available to us until we clean up our act. It's all about the power of pure intention. But notice, when you say you're against war, how does that feel in your body? For me, it makes me all tense. And then I say, I'm for peace. Oh, everything opens up. So I invite you to always, whatever magic you are creating in your life, and now you're going to hear my cat playing with a paper bag. We're getting some cat magic happening here. Whenever you are creating any kind of magic, align with what you are for. Take the time and get really clear about what are you for. We do this with our positive affirmations as well. We want to state them in positive terms because that turns it into white magic. Instead of working against somebody's free will, work for what you choose for yourself. Forget everybody else. Be for what you choose. And don't worry about the other people. The universe will sort all of that out as you get more and more clear about what are you for. What are you for creating with your magic? So now let's take a minute and talk about your personal magic, your unique soul magic. That's what I call it, is the magic of your soul. Because each of us came in with very specific codes of magic. The big tradition that I'm trained in is a Mayan curandero lineage, which is a lineage of Mexican shamans. And the Mayans talk about the 5 worlds. So let me just quickly give you a summary of the 5 worlds in the Mayan tradition. So the first world would be the time of creation, which you might call Eden. In the Christian tradition, we would call that the time of Eden, where everything was perfect, where we had so much magic in Eden, everything. We were always working with the white magic for the highest good when we were in Eden. And then there was that fall from grace. That fall from grace where we stepped into duality. And now all of a sudden everything was good or bad. And we fell from grace. And the magic collapsed at that point. So in the second world, the Mayans say that there were a group of beings from other places, other realms that came to Earth to try to lift us back up, to restore us back. And what they did was they put some of their magical coding into our DNA. This is what the Mayans believe, that magic was actually coded in the second world. It was coded into our DNA. And this was the time, the second world was the time where the fairy tales, what we learned in fairy tales, what we learned about as kids in fairy tales, it was actually happening during the second world. Those beings were here. They were walking the earth. Fairies, angels, dragons, all of it was here during the second world. And they were putting their magical DNA into the human genome to try to lift us back up to where we were in the time of Eden. And then the Mayans say that the third world would be what we would call the time of Atlantis and Lemuria. And this was a time when we were using a lot of magic because that second world woke the magic up inside of us and we started really using it. And we were using it in Lemuria and we were using it in Atlantis. Those two civilizations overlapped. Lemuria was much more heart-centered. Atlantis was much more focused on the magic and the power. But the thing is that we misused, in both cases, we misused the energies. And we did things that we shouldn't have done with our magic. We did not treat it with the respect that it needed. And so we ended up blowing those two civilizations up. So then we entered into the fourth world. And the fourth world would be what we would call the Dark Ages. And it's a time where we shut our magic down because we were afraid of making the same mistake. We didn't want to make the same mistake we had just made. And so many of us turned off those codes that were inside of us. But the thing is, the codes are still there. They're just turned off. All of us have multifaceted magical codes inside of us. Many of those codes have just been turned off. Kind of like I had a house that had it was an old house. And really old, like 1860. And the circuit breaker in the kitchen, the light would just go off for no reason. You'd be cooking and all of a sudden you're in the dark. And I'd have to go to the circuit breaker box and flip the switch back on because something was tripping that switch. Well, that's what happens inside of us. So we have these light codes. Think of the circuit breaker box. But many of our switches have been flipped off. The energy's still there. It's just not flowing. And the more we get clear on our intention, the more that we receive energy transmissions, or the more that we follow specific magical practices, that is a way that starts turning those codes back on again. The more you practice, the more they turn on. And I'm all about supporting people in waking up to their unique spiritual magic, their unique magic that they have carried in their souls all of these years, waking it back up, waking it back up, waking it back up. Remember, it's not you doing the magic. You're just going to do a practice that brings the magic through. And where does the magic come from? Ultimately, it comes from spirit. It comes from source. It comes from God. So I know I live in the Bible Belt. Some people say the buckle of the Bible Belt, that Arkansas is the buckle of the Bible Belt. And so for some of us, that word magic ended up with some negative connotations, that somehow it was evil. But it's not. It's not. It's if you think of magic as being a way to powerfully connect with spirit, so much so that that energy pours through you and pours through so much that it affects the physical material plane around you, then how is that a bad thing? I want you to think of magic as a very, very powerful prayer. I want you to know that magic is something that is already in you. It's your choice whether you turn it on or not. It's your choice whether you allow it to become activated or not. Just like when the light would go out in my kitchen, it was my choice. Did I keep it off or did I go and turn it on? So I hope that with this talk, that this has opened up for you permission to access the magic that you are, permission to connect with spirit, and also permission to play, because magic, it should be fun. I mean, I want everything to be fun. I want healing to be fun. I want magic to be fun. As far as I'm concerned, healing is a very specific form of magic. When we're talking about energy healing, it's a specific form of magic that works on the physical body. So I want it to be fun. So if you like tools, find the tools that you love and play with them, and play with them often. And play with them in a way that you are totally connected with spirit as you play with the tools. If you prefer to work without props, which is usually my preference. I mean, you see, I have tools. Look, you see my tools. There are some of my magical tools right behind me. So they're fun to play with. But I love the fact that I don't need them and that I never have to tell anybody, oh, wait till I get home for the magic to happen. No, the magic can happen right away. That's what I love about high magic is when you know how to tap into it. There are very specific ways of tapping into it. But when you know how to tap into it, it's there always. And the key to working with all of these magics and for them to really work, like the biggest key is to get out of our own way. That's why we spend so much time meditating. That's why we spend so much time repeating, because we're learning how to get out of the way. There's even a funny form of magic called chaos magic, where you deliberately try to distract yourself while you do the magical steps. So you might do, like, you're reciting the alphabet backwards while you're humming the Star Spangled Banner, while you're also dancing the chicken dance. And you're trying to multitask all these different things because that gets the conscious mind out of the way so that the spirit energy can flow through you and the magic can happen. So if you're an overthinker, you need to find a way to get yourself out of the way. And sometimes focusing on a ritual, focusing on a magic spell, spelling it out to the universe what you want to create, repeating that over and over. Sometimes that is a way to get you out of the way, to go into almost like a trance state where now the energy is really flowing. So I want you all to explore different methods of magic, and don't be afraid of it. It's your birthright. It's a part of you. It's already there in you. And it's all around us. It's happening all around us. And it's our choice whether we plug into it or not. But I'm going to encourage you to plug in and plug into it for the highest good. Plug into it in the white magic way, because then there's nothing to be afraid of. As you keep your intention always on the highest good. So one more thing I want to add is that the mistake I see a lot of people making is that they get caught up in trying to tell the universe how to deliver the magic. And it is none of your business how it's going to unfold. Keep your focus on the what. What is it that you're wanting to create? And then choose a method that is fun for you. Keep your focus on the what. Forget about the how. It's okay if you can't see the pathway. You don't have to see the pathway for it to come to you. You can just focus on what the outcome is that you want to have. A friend of mine was just telling me about a relative of hers that was in trouble, I guess, with the law. There was like a court case or something. And she just kept focusing on him being free. And what happened was the court, somehow they just forgot about his case. They forgot about his case. And then they ended up not charging him because too much time had gone by. And the whole thing just disappeared. Now, she couldn't see that outcome. She just kept her intention on the highest good for this person, that he could live the best life possible that he was going to be able to live. And the whole thing just fell away. It wasn't like she was trying to make the court system forget. So that's what we want to let go of, the how, and focus on the what. Focus on the what from a place of knowing that you are part of this magical creation and that you are a multifaceted, magical being filled with the magic of spirit, and that it is there for you to tap into and to direct into the world in a way that makes the world a better place. So If you would like to know more about specific methods of spiritual magic, please take some time and explore my website, www.seashellhealing.com or allcanheal.com, or you can just Google my name, Zabe Barnes, and then go to the learning page, and there you will see many different methods that I teach. These are my favorite methods for living a more magical life. Thank you for taking this time today, and I look forward to spending time with you again soon.